I'm Dean. I'm the dad.
I'm Laura. I'm the mom.
And I'm Krysta. I'm the daughter.
And together we are Family Plot. Very nice. Very nice. All right, let's get the housekeeping out of the way real quick. A couple of ways you can help us out. One is Patreon with $1 or $3 donations. And today is the last day.
No. Today is the first.
Oh, it's over. Yeah, you're right. We did.
Let's give it a few weeks and then maybe we'll do a different.
Yep, that's probably what we'll do. But if you can't do a monthly donation, there's always Buy Me a Coffee, which is a one-time donation of $1 or $2. If you enjoy the show, please share it on social media.
Share it with friends.
Share it with family.
With everyone. And if you don't enjoy the show, please keep it to yourself.
If you say something nice.
Right. And today we're going back to Kansas City, Missouri in the 1950s to examine the kidnapping and death of Bobby Greenlease Jr. as we go full local true crime in this Man, I Forgot About This episode of the Family Plot Podcast.
What? Did you even know about this? What do you mean you forgot? You knew?
I had seen it on that show on
Right.
Crime to Remember, I think it was.
Crime to Remember on.
But I had forgotten about it until I started looking into it, and then the details started coming back.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So let's do some background work. We'll start with Robert Cosgrove Greenlease Senior, Bobby Greenleaf's father. He was born in 1882 in central Missouri to Charles and Julia Marie Greenlease. He worked the family farm until he moved to Kansas City, Missouri, where he became fascinated and intrigued by the new horseless carriages. He actually built his own version, but he couldn't sell it. Nobody wanted it. So in 1909, he opened Greenlease Cadillac, becoming the first Cadillac dealer west of the Mississippi River. He sold them so quickly, Cadillac had a hard time keeping him stocked and ready to sell vehicles. A few years later, Cadillac would be bought by General Motors, and Greenlease was a solid member of that company. In fact, at one point, he loaned them $1 million for an expansion. And of course, they paid that back timely and well. So,
yeah, I'm sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. You probably have seen where Greenlease Cadillac used to be if you're ever downtown. Where Conklin Fangman Cadillac is now located is where Greenlease Cadillac once stood. In 1938, he met a young nurse named Virginia Pollock. The two dated, and soon Virginia became Robert's second wife. In 1941, she gave birth to their first child, a daughter named Virginia Sue. In 1947, he gave birth to a young boy who was named after his father, Robert Cosgrove Greenlease Jr. He was called Bobby by his parents and older sister. Robert Cosgrove Senior was 65 when his son was born.
So they waited. Look at us. We didn't wait anywhere near that long.
No, we didn't. But yes, they waited to have both their kids, it seems like. So before we get on to you talking about the suspects, let's take a moment for Krysta to tell us what's going on in her corner.
It's not just any corner, it's Krysta's corner.
Hi, hello. Welcome.
Hi, hello. Welcome back to the corner.
How are you guys today?
I'm pretty good.
There, how are you feeling today, Chris?
Pretty good. Well, this he hasn't been there.
You've had a couple of rough up and downs, but you're still smiling, which is good. And sometimes that's just how it be.
Absolutely.
And so, are you still interested in flowers, or are we interested in
love
something else
flowers.
this week?
But I didn't.
That's okay.
So we're not going to talk about the flowers that look like they painted the roses red and purple.
No, not this.
Okay.
Getting down to the end of the school year.
Yup.
Also getting close to Krista's birthday.
Absolutely. 26 days away. When we post this, it's gonna be
25.
And then you'll be 13. That's what I said, 13. That's what I said, 13.
5.
And
1 5.
okay, so wait, because we got to talk about some other things. So, you got you're getting back into one of your animes, I know.
Yeah, My Hero Academia. I'm getting back into that.
With Pig and Toad.
It's not Pig and Toad. Who is Pig?
Bakugo. Todoroki.
Oh my gosh, dude. Bakugo isn't a pig. He's an a-hole. He's not a pig. Don't get.
Okay. He's a pig. Bakugo means bacon. Bacon comes from pigs. Just like Todoroki means toad, so they're bacon / pig and toad.
He's a. No, that's not how it works. Bag. I thought Sion was gonna jump out at me.
She was, and then she decided to jump out at Apollo instead.
Yeah, I just now thought about that when I put my foot down.
So what do you want to talk about today if you don't want to talk about flowers and Todoroki and Bakugo?
Thank you for just saying their names. Actually, I'm working on a lot of art stuff, and I just got math
Yes,
and
you did.
felt so I can do my craft.
Cool.
I reached 3,000 on TikTok.
Yay, congratulations. That's pretty awesome.
And we finished reading this book in class called Poet X.
Cool.
It was awful.
Not cool.
I was going to say less cool, but
Yeah, the romance was horrible. And in-depth poetry about self-experimenting.
They had you reading a book that included masturbation. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah.
he is 14. What else is going on in Krista's corner?
And we're working on it. This man just tried to tickle me, y'all. I'm putting him on the wanted tickle stamp. Crap.
I noticed. Yeah, my Krysta.
Been wanting to make more bracelets. And I just woke up from a nap.
Well, you could make more bracelets, and we could put them out and let people buy Krysta's bracelets.
You buy my bracelets and my art.
I think we could sell that. I'll put it out in the group tomorrow. I'll need a picture of one of your bracelets, so you may have to make one tonight. But yes, they are playing.
I just want to know what we're talking about.
Our kitties are jumping in and out of a paper bag in the middle of the room.
And all three of them have gone doing it, and it's all the same bag, and I think it's so funny.
Yep.
All right, Mommy, got anything else you want to tell us about?
Oh,
Alrighty.
here we go.
No, that's
Yeah, we got a longer episode this week, and next week we've got a really long one. So, hun, you want?
So we're going to talk about the suspects.
Yep.
Our suspect is Carl Austin Hall. Carl was 34 at the time of the kidnapping. He was an alcoholic and a morphine addict. He was taking half a grain every 6 hours. And he was a thief as well. His father was a lawyer with a reputation as a hard man. His mother loved him, but he was always getting in trouble, always swindling the other children and bragging about how one day he would be a big deal. His mom tried to get him a job as a lineman's apprentice at 11, hoping it would help him finally get on the straight and narrow. It didn't work. He was quickly let go and his behavior got even worse. They sent him to Kemper Military School in Boonville, Missouri, where he met Paul Robert Greenlease, Robert's child from his first marriage. And it was from Paul that he learned of the Greenlease family wealth. From there, he went on to the Marines. However, Carl went AWOL, saying he'd rather be in jail than in the Marines. By that time, his parents were both dead. He went home, sold his newly inherited property, and, pausing only to have an affair with a local man's wife, a wife he took with him when he went to Kansas City, he left Pleasanton, where he had been raised. Bonnie Brown Heady, on the other hand, was the daughter of a prosperous farmer. People in St. Joe and in Nottoway County remembered her as a pigtailed little girl who always rode on the sway-backed pony her prosperous father purchased for her. She was a beloved figure who married a farmer, attended dog shows, and
That should be
was
big, not ball.
a big part of the St. Joseph social scene. At some point, she divorced her respectable husband, began drinking a quart or more of alcohol daily, and being seen drunkenly swishing around St. Joe. She received about $85,000 a year from her father's farm and investments, but she began working as a sex worker. She would pay cab drivers $2 for bringing interested men to her home. She racked up complaints by her neighbors who didn't care for the loud parties she threw. And roughly a year later, she met Carl Austin Hall, the pair becoming an off-again, on-again couple. Carl even began living with Bonnie.
So those are our criminals in this case, and as you can see, they're a special couple.
All right. My mommy was 6 years old. I mean, six months old on our next 6 months and 7 days.
Who?
My mom.
Oh, okay. let's take a moment for a word from another podcast.
Do you have to throw on your favorite true crime podcast before bed in order to fall asleep? Same. And it's the very reason that I created Serial Napper. My name is Nikki Young, and I'm here to lull you to sleep or perhaps to give you nightmares with some of the craziest true crime stories that you've never heard of. Each episode of Serial Napper features a different true crime story told succinctly the way that it happened. Just the facts, ma'am. My focus is on unsolved crimes that need more attention, cold cases, and wrongful convictions. While true crime shows can sometimes be graphic in nature, I ensure that the story is told in a way that is respectful to the victims and their families. Now, when it's time for bed, you can look forward to 30 minutes of well-researched and detailed case files while you get your beauty sleep. Find Serial Napper on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you like to listen to podcasts. Sweet dreams.
Wow.
I like Nikki Young. I like Serial Napper. I think it's a good idea.
Wait,
I love it. I love her voice, and I love
she's got a great
together.
sound. Absolutely.
It's really good.
Well, Chris, you want to take us on to September 28th of 1953?
Absolutely. You already said it for me. Bonnie Hall arrived at the Notre Dame
I believe it's DeScion, but I could be wrong.
I'm learning Spanish. I think it's. Anyway, sorry. Catholic school in Kansas City, Missouri. He posed as the boy's aunt, claiming his mom had a heart attack and were there. Take the boy home and look after him while his mom was in the hospital. Bonnie arrived by taxi, and when the child was brought to her, he meekly held her hand until they left. Bonnie even later told an interviewer that the child in her held her hand, did as told very well.
And was very well behaved.
Very well behaved. And was very well behaved. Bonnie put the boy in the taxi with the taxi drove a few blocks back where Carl was. Bonnie left the boy with Carl and went shopping. Carl drove the boy to Kansas, shot him dead, and began to send ransom notes to the Robert Greenlease
Senior. Yeah.
Senior. Meanwhile, another nun called Miss Greenlease. Called Miss Greenlease, check on the family. Discovered the ruse and left the Greenlease town tax the FBI.
Right. So now let's take a moment for a word from our sponsors.
I feel sponsored.
So do I. So Carl met back up with Bonnie, who had finished shopping. She saw a large bundle under a blanket in the back seat. Carl told her it was dog food. The pair mailed several letters and made several phone calls demanding a ransom of $600,000. Adjusting for inflation, that would be equivalent to over $6.5 million today. Robert Greenlease Senior held the police off and paid the ransom. Bonnie and Carl picked it up, and Carl drove Bonnie to St. Joe, where he buried the boy's body in her backyard before the pair fled to St. Louis, where they rented an apartment. In the middle of the night, Carl snuck out, leaving Bonnie by herself. Carl contacted several other criminals in an attempt to distract the police. One of the criminals, a former sex worker named Sandra O'Day, was supposed to fly to Los Angeles and mail a letter that Hall had written, thinking if he could get police to focus on LA, they would lose track of him in Missouri. However, Sandra had seen the ransom money, and she was not the only one. Others saw him flashing cash around, a lot of cash around as well, which suddenly brought him to the attention of the St. Louis Police Department. Two police officers, Lieutenant Louis Irish Shoulders and Patrolman Elmer Dolan, arrested Hall and brought him to the police station, vouching into evidence the $288,000 they said Hall had on him. After 2 days of interrogation, Hall admitted to kidnapping and murder and implicated Bonnie as well.
So now we should talk about the trial. The kidnapping and trial, of course, made national news. Because Bobby had been taken over a state line into the state of Kansas before he was killed, the FBI had become involved via the Federal Kidnapping Act. Both Hall and Heady confessed to the kidnapping and murder. The trial. The kidnapping trial made national news. Because Bobby had been taken over a state line into Kansas before he was murdered, the FBI had become involved via the Federal Kidnapping Act. Both Hall and Heady confessed to the kidnapping and murder. A jury deliberated for a little over an hour before recommending the death penalty. On December 18, 1953, both were executed at the gas chamber at the Missouri State Penitentiary. It was 11 weeks from the committing of the crime to the execution, and neither Heady nor Hall ever filed for an appeal. Bonnie Heady was one of only 4 women executed by the federal government. She, along with Mary Surratt, executed as part of the conspiracy to assassinate Lincoln, which we discussed in the John Wilkes Booth episode. Ethel Rosenberg, wife of Julius Rosenberg, both who were convicted of spying and executed for treason, and Lisa Montgomery, who cut a baby out of the womb of Bobby Joe Stinnett, which we mentioned in the Ken Rex McElroy episode. Bonnie is the only female executee who was executed via the gas.
288,000.
I don't. Anyway, dollars of the ransom money. You're never.
Only 288,000.
Oh yeah, only 288,000 of the ransom money were ever recovered. Some theories about the location of the rest of it include that local mob boss, Joseph Gene Costello, was informed by a cab driver of its whereabouts and made Carl give him some of the money, or stole some of it. Some claim Paul buried some of the cash near the
Merrimack.
River, but the FBI about that. Another theory that Shoulder and
Dolan.
took some of the money.
Yep.
Both claimed they had turned in what Paul had, but
That was later.
Proven to be false. Both men Both men were indicted and convicted on federal pre-jury charges around this Shoulders dying short time. Shoulders. Why? Ugh,
Because it's the last name of one of the men, his Shoulders.
that's bad. But
Dying a short time later, and Dolan.
a short time later, and Dolan admitting that Shoulders had taken some of the money, and Dolan had been more scared of Shoulders than was a prison time. He was eventually pardoned and released by LBJ in 1965.
An LBJ is slang shorthand for Lyndon Baines Johnson. He was president after JFK. So, yeah, basically, he was pardoned by a president and released, which Shoulders had already died at that point, and Dolan had pretty much admitted that he was afraid of Shoulders, and Shoulders had taken a significant bit of the money. The crime has been featured on ID's A Crime to Remember series, as well as an episode of Deadly Women. When Ghost Adventures investigated Missouri State Penitentiary, Zach was told about Heady's death in the gas chamber, and he believed she was one of the spirits attempting to reach out to him.
Well, I will politely decline to say much about Mr. Baggins because I've never been super impressed by his work, but
Yeah, so
that really brings us to the end of our information. What do you think? You think they're the ones that did it? I mean, they admitted to it, so probably.
oh, almost certainly. And Carl was clearly a genius because that plan was tumbled in what? A day? Maybe less?
I don't know if that makes him a genius, just a jerk.
Well, I was being facetious. Yeah.
A genius. The
But yeah, Carl was just, I don't think Carl was all that bright. I mean, his dad had money, his mom had money, and he was one of those people that seemed to think he could skate along and get away with whatever he wanted.
Yeah.
And no matter how often he got smacked back down of that belief, it never broke him of it. And maybe that's part of the addiction. I don't know about morphine addiction. I don't know if it lets you believe those sort of lies about yourself, but it could be part of that. It could also be just he saw money and wanted to go after it. And that's something else too, is who meets someone in military academy and is like, wow, your parents have a lot of money. I want to rob them someday.
Wow, yeah.
That's, I mean, it just, I don't know. I don't like him. I feel like she either had to like hit her head or, something happened to her to cause her personality to change so radically. Or the only other thing I can think of is alcoholism is a weird disease.
I just think she just was too pampered.
yeah.
I just think she got sick of being pampered and not having any wild adventures, and she decided that she was going to do what she wanted to do. She was tired of being little rich farm girl, and she wanted to play, and so she got into trouble.
Yeah, but that's a lot of trouble. I mean, when you die,
So we're talking about in the 50s, she was getting almost $100,000 a month.
a year,
Okay, still a year in the 1950s,
right?
early 1950s.
Right.
It's insane.
Yes.
I don't make that in 2024.
Right.
So she had more money than she knew what to do with, and she was just bored.
And that's probably true. I mean, if $600,000 in that time is worth over 6 million, then 85,000 has to be like 750,000 a year at least, roughly. Adjusting for inflation and all that, and 750,000 a year. But 750,000 a year is I mean, that was a substantial amount of funds. So yes, yeah, she was certainly well to do. And you're right, she never really had to do anything. But that's my other thing is like she became this wild alcoholic, and it made me wonder if she was a drinker before then and that she could just control it up to a point.
She also could have, but she was in her early. She could have been, what do they call that? Psychotic?
Oh yeah, it could have been that.
She could have been a like paranoid schizophrenic.
She could have been.
And just, those can make, or bipolar, those can make people difference of night and day and make them get in and could have even been, I mean, they killed her, they put her to death. She could have had a brain tumor. It could have been an aneurysm. It could have been anything. She also could have just been bored, which is what
She could have been bored, you're right. And maybe she knew what Carl was doing. It's possible. It's not even just possible.
I feel like it's probably.
But when she asked him, "Hey, what's that in the back seat?" He said it was dog food, and she let it go.
Yeah, that's how the story goes anyway. No one will ever know what really happened except for those two people who are both dead now.
I see what you're saying, but at the same time, I guess I just have a little pity for her, and I don't have much at all for him.
And I don't see how you have pity for her because she had everything going for her and she threw it all away to make somebody else miserable. She didn't need that $600,000.
No, she didn't.
She didn't need any of that. She was just playing and being stupid and not caring about anybody but what she wanted to do.
And that's to some extent true, but at the same time, I mean, 1950s, women didn't get a great education prior to that, or they were just starting.
And so it sounds like this woman had her daddy's ear and she was getting funded consistently and she didn't have anything that she had to worry about and she still took off and did it.
That's the difference of night and day right there. I feel like I'm in the middle because it depends on the situation. It's I mean quite for this.
I'm just saying, if she had gotten life in prison and not the death penalty, I would have been okay with that, as long as she actually served life in prison. Now, the fact that they were both put to death in the gas chamber on the same day, I think even at the same time, is probably a little kinder than either one of them deserved, because at least you have somebody in there that you can say, bye, baby, or whatever,
Bye.
and having that little touch of human kindness before you go might make it a lot easier. But yeah. And then for the Greenleases, because he still had his company and still lived here afterwards. And a lot of this information I got from the Greenlease family website, which really only has a small section on this because they would rather focus on how the man loved the Catholic Church and all the various things he donated to and raised money for, especially after Bobby was gone. You know, he was a good human. Even after he lost his son to these two pirates, he was a good human. He was doing what he was supposed to do. And his wife talks about how she sort of buried herself in the church after Bobby was gone. And it just,
It is.
yeah, and I don't get, why do you start off with killing the kid?
Yeah.
Because wear a mask around him. He'll figure, yeah, okay, wait, he can get Bonnie. But still, man, I don't know.
It's just heartbreaking.
Yeah,
It's a waste of life.
and
It's a waste of a promise.
yeah, right, and like Bonnie Heady, who like played the aunt, she talked about how well behaved he was. Held her hand, didn't say a word, did what he was told, because that's what his parents had taught him to do.
Kid.
He was a very good kid. And so, yeah, it's just so sad. Yeah. And I mean, and like I said, he carried on. He was a staunch member of the Kansas City community. He changed the community. You can go to Conklin Fangman, their place, and you can still see things that he had done for his dealership, like these, I forget what they call them, but something or other corners he had designed to make his Cadillac dealership look top rate, first shelf, top shelf, first rate. Yeah.
That's what you know.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Like, so, but they're still there. Nobody has filed them off. Nobody's changed them. They're still there. And like I said, he donated to institutions that are still in this town today. So it's nice to see someone not destroyed by this, but at the same time, if there was ever a guy who deserved it not to happen, it seems to be this family. Because,
Unfortunately, you are well off. Sometimes even if you're a good person, other people will go out for their own action.
and that's the other thing. People talk about entitlement, and I mean, Carl Hall might be the most entitled person I've ever read about. You know, he was going to be a big man, and when his parents died, he sold their stuff. He didn't preserve anything. He sold it. It was only worth money to him. And we've seen that in people we know, and I always hate to see that, because the memories of the person you're with, maybe you keep. I get it. This economy, yeah, do what you can for money, but keep a couple of the keepsakes. It just, and then I just can't wrap my mind around Bonnie Heady, unless you're right. I just can't, because I have never heard of someone making that sort of jump from, uh, I got to go to the dog show, and I'm going home with my husband, and I got to see how the farm's doing, and to drinking a quart of whiskey a day, or whatever alcohol she happened to be drinking that day, and charging guys $20 a night to spend the night with her, which she didn't need the money, and then deciding that Carl Hall was a good guy to get involved with.
What about you, Chris? Do you have any final thoughts? Yes, no, maybe so.
Sorry.
So,
Yes, no, I don't. I do.
I mean, I do feel like
well, okay. Let's say you knew Bobby Greenlease. How upset would you have been to lose him like that? And how much would you hate these two people? And that's the other thing. Carl absolutely needed Bonnie for this. Without Bonnie, he can't get the kid. Not unless he like yanks him out of a moving car or something. And they weren't.
I'm pretty sure I would be pretty upset though. Like, I don't think Connie could girl boss her way through that.
And yeah, it just, I don't know. It's a sad story. It's a sad story that had happened locally. And it, if anything, it's okay.
If anything, it's we're saying.
If anything, it highlights the dangers of addiction.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Because he was taking a half grain of, what did you say, morphine?
Yeah.
Every 6 hours. That's a pretty deep addiction for that point in time. I don't know what that would be today, because I haven't heard of morphine being measured in grains since the 20s. So when what's his name? LeVay, not LeVay. Mr. Crowley, Aleister Crowley died because he was dying taking grains of heroin. And yeah, he was saying massive amounts, more than people should be able to live doing. That's how long he'd been addicted. And yeah, I just, it's a sad story. It's a very sad story. Even our Krysta is sad. That's our show.
That is our show. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for keeping us in the Good Pods Top 100. Thanks for joining our Facebook group. Thanks to Bill Barrett, and that last name is spelled Behrendt, who has done our theme music. Bill is a musician. If you need music for a project or music for an event, Bill's your guy. You can reach him at billbarrett@sbc.global.net, or you can reach him. No, that's the way, at sbcglobal.net. Or he's also part of the Rusty and Dusty podcast, is what I was trying to say, so you can catch him there. Paige is formerly of the Reverie Crime podcast. She has stopped doing that, but it's still available online. You can still hear some great true crime from Paige. But she also has a Canva addiction, which she has combined with our own Krista's artwork to make some logo art for us. Thank you, Paige.
Thanks.
Thanks to Aaron Gunnerk of the Big Dumb Fun Show, who continues to promote us locally. Join us next week as we stay in the true crime vein, looking into the rather classic case of the Black Dahlia. Ah!